now we get to embarrass Tonia back, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay, go.
Okay, Tonia Ransom.
So we have a fantastic, where are all my buttons? Guest this week. And if there's anyone on this planet who has too many projects going on at once in too many genres, just like us, it's Tonia.
Tonia is a force for good in everything she does.
Yes.
Nightlight is one of the most important and best horror
An
fiction
Ignite
podcasts.
Award-winning!
An Ignite Award-winning podcast. And we are absolutely delighted to see that Tonia has, along with our good friend Jen Zink. Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Who's in
We
the
love
chat.
you, Jen.
And who has done incredible audio production work on this. Has put together The Afflicted, which is a full cast audio drama, which launches on Halloween, I believe.
I think I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I see nodding. Yes,
Yeah.
Monday will be the debut of Afflicted, and to join us is Tonia Ransom, the creator, and the creator of Nightlight Pod, which is Ignite Award winning, like we said, Black Horror Spec Fic. Tonia is also narrating an audiobook and supporting an anthology, and we're gonna turn it over to her.
Force for good.
Yeah. Not a lot of sleep between the three of us, but absolute force for good. So, cross your fingers, Ma. Remember how to make all the buttons work. And we're going to live.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey!
Right.
Hey, buddy. How you
Hi,
doing?
Tonia. How are you?
Good.
Also,
I was
Tonia
trying
has
not
the
to
most
cry.
amazing bookcase in creation.
Oh
you will
my
notice.
God,
Thank
your
you.
bookcase.
Her, like,
that is so
Game
cool.
of Thrones-esque bookcase in the background there. Also, lipstick game matching the headphones.
And the glasses.
Ooh, choice.
Thank you. I think I messed up my lipstick though, making that funny face for you
It was
guys.
totally worth it.
It's worth it.
Totally
There we
worth
go. Fixed now.
Yeah, the bookcase is amazing. One of these days, you know what we gotta get you is some like underlighting, like outline some of the spaces and like lights or like.
I have some. Actually, I just don't. I don't know how to plug them in. They're USB, and so I have to like. Well, I know how to do it. I just need to get the thing to do it. But it's like it's all sticky and stuff, so that I could like line it and everything. I just, doing too much other stuff to worry about lights for my bookcase.
So how have you been?
Very busy, but
Tell us.
in the best way.
Tell us all about it.
Oh man. Okay, so of course, like Nightlight is still doing its thing. We are about to wrap up season 5 shortly. We are now doing year-round episodes. We're not taking a break between not November and February anymore because of our wonderful, wonderful patrons helping us fund episodes year-round. So super, super excited about that. Of course, I'm working on Afflicted with Jen and a whole bunch of other really amazing, amazing people that I'm so, so lucky to have as part of the cast and crew that premieres on Halloween. Yeah. I'm doing some writing for a couple of different podcasts as well. They're not out yet, so I can't say anything specific about those, but when they come out, of course, I will share them with everybody. Working on an anthology of zombie stories from the African diaspora. So not the traditional, Romero kind of zombies.
Cool.
That we're currently fundraising for. So if you are so inclined, go to bit.ly/blackenedroots to get your copy of that, as well as a copy of my novella Risen as part of the perks package, along with a couple of other novellas by Elmarie Wood and some other writers that are part of Mocha Memoirs Press. And I'm sure that there's some other stuff that I'm doing that I just don't remember right now.
Oh my God.
Right?
It's a lot. Yeah, I'm pretty tired.
So tell us, let's start with Nightlight, because that's how you came into our life is, anthology. I don't know what to call us. Like, we publish weekly short fiction, and then all the vocabulary changed about audio fiction and audio drama, and some people call Pseudopod and Nightlight anthology shows, and it's like, the big difference is, of course, it's prose. It is a magazine style publication, and we take a single story, and it usually has sometimes one voice, sometimes it's a full cast. So how the heck did you get started with with fiction, with the fiction world, with the genre world?
Well, I tell people this story all the time, but I grew up with three older brothers, one younger brother, and a dad who loved horror. And, of course, brothers are ruthless. They will make fun of you for everything they can possibly think of. And so I knew that if I was going to watch, horror movies with them, I had to have nerves of steel and, at least pretend that it didn't scare me. And so I really started getting into watching horror like way too young. My parents let me watch anything as long as it didn't have sex scenes in it. That was the only time I had to turn my head. But, people being decapitated, brutally murdered, totally cool. And so I got to watch a lot of horror stuff. And Halloween was one of the first movies that I watched. And we had an assignment in second grade where we made, like, literally made the physical books, like a picture book,
Oh
where we got,
wow.
like, chipboard and some contact paper, and we did our illustrations and our writing and everything in it. And I wrote Michael Myers fan fiction.
You are the
And
coolest human I have ever met. It's very important to me you know
love
this.
that.
Well, the teacher, of course, called my mom, and I was a good kid in school. And so I thought she was calling my mom because she was so proud of the story that I'd written that I'd scared her. And I did. I just didn't realize that I scared her not in the way that I intended to
Yeah.
scare her. But I got hooked on that feeling. And so, horror writing was always something that I wanted to do. I just never really shared my work with people because I grew up in the deep South in East Texas, Bible Belt, and it was generally frowned upon to be a fan of or, especially create anything that was horror related. But over the years, I discovered old time radio. Like, I'd heard of it before, but I'd never really listened to the shows. I'd heard of like the comedy shows, but I didn't realize that there were horror shows and suspense shows and things like that until I was much older. And I was like, oh my God, this would be a great medium to revive. Like, it'd be great if this came back. And so this was, like late 90s, early 2000s. And then,
Right
of course,
before it all kicked
podcasts.
off. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And then podcasts became a thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier now. I could totally do this. And so, um, I kept procrastinating, thinking, oh, I'll just wait for the right time when I have the right amount of money. And, all of these things are in place to start a podcast. And I realized there was never going to be a right time. So I just decided to jump and do it. And I made a lot of mistakes in the way because I just jumped in and did it. But I think so far it's turned out pretty okay.
Well, you've
So
done one thing
can't
that
complain.
definitely has been an innovation, I would call, of like second wave podcasting, and that is seasons.
Yes.
Whereas, Escape Pod is in 2005. And in 2005, the idea of how you grow and maintain an audience is consistency. And so, the weekly model was what you had to do. And now, what, 15, 18? Don't do math.
Don't do the math.
Long,
Don't do the math.
long time later. It's very psychologically difficult to move away from the idea of, but I didn't release an episode this week. My friends are all going to abandon me,
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
seasons
definitely
has
felt
always
that
been
way
great.
with Nightlight as well. I just didn't have the money to do it year round. So it was kind of, one of those things where it was like I could have done it year round, but then I would have had to pay everyone a very small amount of money that I wasn't comfortable with. And so I opted to just say, you know what, we're going to have seasons and it is what it is. And hopefully that works out. And I mean, it did, listenership definitely went down during the off season, which is, to be expected,
Yeah.
but it came right back. So I was really surprised and also thankful to see that people
Nice.
stuck around even
That's
though I wasn't
fantastic.
doing something every week.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how we met. Is you are a friend of Alex Hoffelick, who's the co-editor of Pseudopod, and then we collaborated on Witching Hour, which was our first audio drama. And I think at that point you had Afflicted well in development.
Yeah, I actually started writing Afflicted along with Mallory O'Meara. She was my original partner on this,
Wow.
like,
Oh!
years and years and years ago. Like, I think this was 2016, 2017 that we started writing it, right when she started doing reading classes with Bria Grant.
Right.
And so we were talking about doing it, and then she got, her book deal for her book with about Millicent Patrick, and her life kind of came at her fast, and she was like,
then
"I
she
can't
did
do this
girly
anymore."
drinks and yeah.
Yeah. And so I asked her, last year, I was like, hey, I'd really like to do something with this. Like, what kind of agreement, can we come up with so that you're compensated fairly and, all of that. And she was like, just take it and run with it, basically. Like, she was just amazing about it. But, a lot of it's changed since then, but a lot of it's also remained the same as what Mallory and I put together. So there's still a lot of her footprint in Afflicted. Like
Mm.
August is named after her grandfather.
Oh, how
Oh,
sweet.
And so, we kept that obviously because that was something that was important to her. And I want to honor how she was a part of this from the very
of
beginning.
course.
And, now we're actually producing it and it's, becoming something that's going to be out there in the world and it's terrifying, but also really, really, really exciting.
So yeah, you're like
Mhm.
what? Today's Wednesday. Launches on Monday.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Are you like, oh god, it's done. I don't have to do anything more, thank goodness. Are you like
No, I'm still freaking out because I have Austin Film Festival this weekend.
yeah?
So I'm going to be, at that conference speaking and networking and,
Ooh.
all of that good stuff. So immediately after, that, so I'm going to be there Friday and Saturday. And then Sunday is our
Is
launch party
launch
for
party.
all of our supporters. So I'm a little nervous about the launch party because, of course, I want that to go really well. I want people to have a good experience. And I've never really done a virtual launch party
Mm-hmm.
before. I figure it can't be like terribly complicated, but there's always something that can go wrong. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. And of course, I'm nervous about how people are going to receive it, even though the people who have heard the first episode so far have had, wonderful things to say about it. It's still, in the back of my mind, like, what if people really hate it? What if I play this during the virtual party and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe I gave you my money, which I don't think is going to happen. But, that doubt is always like, when you have anxiety, there's always some little
Of
voice
course.
in your head that's telling you all of the things that can go wrong. So yes, I'm nervous. We're still in production for the other episodes, trying to get them ready
Mm-hmm.
and out as quickly as possible so that people can have early access. So, we're still very much in the thick of production and, poor Jen and I aren't really sleeping very much. At this point, our
No.
brains are dead. Like we
Oh,
keep asking each other, like, wait, what are we supposed to be doing right now? What's up? What else is on our list? Because we're just starting to lose track of all the different threads. But, after the premiere is done, and we're not so focused on like all the other little logistics, like fulfilling the perks from the Indiegogo
Yeah,
campaign and all
yeah.
of that, and we can just focus on production, it's going to be a
yeah,
lot easier, I think.
because at this stage you've really got three jobs going on at once, haven't you? There's the
Yes.
launch, there's the fulfillment, and there's writing the other episodes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's rough. And
Yeah.
I'm saying this to both you and Jen in the chat. Please look after yourselves
Oh yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna do so much better next year. We're not doing this to ourselves next year.
So
We're going to make sure this is all, that we space this out, over a period of months.
so
We can
what's
do all
been
our
your
recording early, but
timeline on it, right? Because you ran a crowdfunder.
yeah. We started it in May and ended in July.
Mm-hmm.
And I had written the first episode, but I hadn't really written the rest of them. Like I'd blocked things out.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna get started on writing it. But then I got COVID and
Oh.
I got terrible brain fog to where like I could not think of anything. I couldn't remember anything. Like writing was
Oh,
absolutely out of the question.
Oh
So I was like,
no.
crap, so we lost a few weeks to that. We had a couple of issues with cast that, got really, really sick, like hospitalized, kind of
oh
sick.
no.
So, if that actor is listening, I hope that you're doing really well and I hope that you're doing better. But there were some last minute things that we kind of threw our timeline
Yeah.
into a crunch because we had to recast folks at the last minute. So we didn't even start recording until late last month.
Oh gosh.
I think, yeah. So that's part of why like we are in such a time crunch because, I got sick and then, we had some cast members get sick and it was just
Yeah.
like a string of bad luck for a while. And we were like, oh my God, like, is this cursed like the town in Afflicted?
You're like,
Or,
this is feeling very self-fulfilling.
yeah, yeah. Like I need to be careful what I write, apparently.
Mm. So what's
But
the
yeah.
structure? What's the plan structure? Like what you really schedule for the first season? Do you know how many episodes season one is gonna be?
Yeah, yeah. So we're gonna have 10 episodes for season one, plus kind of a bonus holiday episode that's right around the Christmas holiday. I think December 26th is
Love
when
a
that
holiday
one's going
episode so
live.
much.
So yeah, we do have that planned out. We're going to
Mhm.
be releasing every 2 weeks on Apollo Podcasts. They have like a wonderful fiction podcast app that just focuses on fiction
Yes.
podcasts, and you can buy season passes, episode passes, so you get ad-free episodes, things like that. So we're releasing a week early on Apollo across the board, so folks can buy those episodes or buy a season pass to get
Mhm.
That's
ad-free
really smart.
episodes and early access. But yeah, like that's the other thing is, the early access means that we've got to get this stuff done. So that's,
be
it's
early
putting
access,
another,
yeah.
yeah. So it's putting a little bit of a crunch on us, but
Mm.
it's just, it's one of those things that couldn't really be helped. And, we're making it work, but things are going to start to level out for us here pretty soon. I think.
Mhm.
I'm going to knock on wood because I'm
Yeah.
superstitious.
And I mean, that's a fantastic segue. We have heard the first episode and
Yes.
we loved it.
Oh yeah.
And we don't want to give any spoilers, of course, but belief and myth and magic and family are all very core to this story. And what I will say is that, oh boy, do you hit the ground running with this sucker. Like, there is no
I've heard
Lala
that.
wakes up and looks in the mirror and oh no, shit is on.
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the
yeah. The
jump.
moment, yeah, I tend to like throw people into the deep end of the pool with any of my writing, not just this. This is, I don't know, that's just kind of my style, I guess, probably because I have ADHD and I find it hard to focus on things that don't grab my attention right away, that I tend to, start with where I would want it to start because I don't want to read all of that stuff in the beginning that like sets things up
Well,
a
that's a
lot of
classic
times,
Joan Rogers quote, isn't it? Start as late as possible, finish as quickly as
Yeah.
possible. Just do the
Yeah.
good stuff, and then, well, these days it's like all the commentary talk shows and Q&As are where we'll go into all the background and slow burn and all of that sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
what do you want to tell us about the story of Afflicted?
Well, I will say this, that it won semi-finalist at the Austin Film Festival's podcast scripting contest a couple of years back, and that was like an early draft of it, and it's so much better than it was then.
Nice.
I paid for some coverage because I'm also kind of shopping it as a TV series as well.
Good. Yes.
So, got
Excellent.
some really great comments about that and, some
We'll come
things that
back
I
to
needed
that
to
point.
fix. Yeah. But it definitely helped me create a stronger script, I think, for the first episode. So, super excited about that. But, I think it's probably best described as Lovecraft Country meets True Blood. There's this element of cosmic horror, demonic horror,
Mhm.
a lot of xenophobia is in it. But then there's also, a lot of Southern folklore, particularly Black Southern folklore. I think that there's a lot of overlap between Southern folklore from white communities and Black communities. So I think a lot of white people from the South will relate to a lot of the folklore that's in there, but it's specifically what I learned growing up in my family that I thought was just superstition. But then, as I was doing research later, I discovered, oh, there's a name for this and it's hoodoo. It's not just old Black people superstitious stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm really, really excited, particularly because, this is a part of me, and how I grew up, and sort of a way for me to honor my heritage and share my perspective and experience growing up with the world. And, I just hope they love it too.
That's really one of the things that leaps out the speakers. That sense of it being very grounded.
Mhm.
The best way I can describe it, and obviously we're going to tap dance around spoilers.
We're
an awful
trying
lot
really
here.
hard not to spoil anything.
There were 3 or 4 points in that first episode where different characters were talking, and my brain went, there is more to that. There's more to that person. There's more to that relationship.
Oh yeah.
It feels, you talked about how you like to hit the ground running. The thing that really marks this out for me as something very special is that not only do you do that, but you also never leave anybody behind. In the space of 2-3 minutes, you get everything you need about the show, and then you turn the show on its head, and then you get the next 2 or 3 things you need to know.
And then you turn the show on its head again. And that's the first episode, Tonya.
I like torturing people. What can I say?
I will say, you are the first audio drama podcast, audio drama podcast, since that episode of St. Kilda. And people who have listened to St. Kilda will know what I mean when I say that episode, where I audibly went, oh no. And that is absolutely the reaction you want to go for. I'm really pleased that you took it there.
And I'm really interested in knowing, like, with that is where you started, what are you doing next? I'm like,
yes, right?
If that is your baseline emotional beat, oh my god.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be revealed about each of these characters. There are people who are not what they seem. There are people who are exactly what they seem, but you don't necessarily believe that that's who they are. So yeah, I'm a big fan of using misdirection a lot. I think that and I've taught classes on writing audio dramas, and this is one of the things that I tell people is, not only do you have to think of a way to take something, because most of our brains tend to work more visually than auditorily. And so you have to take something that you're seeing in your head and figure out, what is that going to sound like? And will that paint the picture in the listener's head that's in my head when I'm writing? And so that's something that I really strive to do. But then the other thing that I tell them is that you have to raise a question, because that makes people keep listening, because you've given them a mystery that they have to know the answer to. So even, when you have these slow moments where you're doing more character development and, trying to get some exposition in there so people are more grounded in what's happening, there's still something to hold them through all of that so that they're interested and they don't want to skip those parts because something important might be revealed in that backstory, or that, seems like off the cuff conversation with characters.
You need the why. Why are you coming back next week? Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your point about kind of educating people or communicating to people what's going on via the kind of audio medium is something that's very close to my heart at the moment, because it's a good chunk of the stuff I'm doing. And this is where I'm not only going to say very nice things about you, but where I'm going to look straight down the camera at Jen.
Yes. Say them to her too.
and Lillian. Because Lillian Boyd,
my God,
who composed our stream music, is composing the score for Afflicted.
And she composed the theme music, which is so
I
amazing.
love it. Like, I need that track now.
Yes.
In my playlist.
Yes. Like, I keep listening to it and I'm like, I need to make this my ringtone or something.
Idea.
It's so great. And we are so lucky to have Lillian. And that is all Jen's doing. Jen is the one that reached out to Lillian and was like, hey, would you like to do this with us? And
yoink! Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's all Jen.
And that's one thing I love seeing, is I love seeing cross-pollination between audio people.
Yeah.
It's just such a fantastic, tight-knit community, and we all pitch in and we all help and we all give ideas and we all loan, back and forth to all sorts of different shows. I love that.
But the whole nature of the soundscaping in the show, and we were talking about this just before we went on air, Jen does a thing which nourished the part of my soul that is a retired stage magician.
And you can talk about that. That's not going to be spoilery, because we've already talked about the fact that there's earthquakes happening. So
cool. Basically, there are one of the big things in the first episode is that a lot of the action takes place in two places in town, and post earthquake, one of the places has a car alarm going off, and the thing that you and Jen do, where you use that car alarm to lead the audience around, it's one of the most subtle pieces of storytelling.
That was all Jen. I had nothing to do with that. That was all Jen. So I just want to make sure that Jen is getting full credit for that.
You jump between a couple of different characters and a couple of different locations as this crisis event is occurring. And the direction and the position of that alarm going
tells
off
you where you are.
Tells you where you are. And it's just this fantastic, it is audible, but it's subconscious way of grounding yourself. And I really like that in particular with something with a horror element, or in this case, in this particular case, it's slightly more crisis than horror
Right.
so far, but
Yeah.
it is very Silent Hill, right? If you've ever played the original Silent Hill games, it's all about where is the static coming from and where is that
Yeah.
alarm and how do I orient myself towards, the monsters I have to fight. And so calling back to that, point of audible reference was just really nicely done.
Yeah, Jen is amazing.
Yes, Jen
Yes,
is
Absolutely
Jen, you are.
amazing.
amazing. I'm so lucky to have her. And I've said this before, in interviews that I've done with you guys and in other places, but like even Nightlight wouldn't exist without Jen because I have like a jacked up elbow and I was doing all of the sound design really badly, honestly, if I'm gonna tell the truth, because I didn't know what I was doing. I just again jumped into the deep end and I realized like my elbow could not handle all of the clicking that has to happen with sound design. And so I had a
Mm.
really hard decision to make. I wanted to pay everybody for their labor, but I could not afford to pay a sound designer. And, I thought I'm going to have to stop this because I physically am not capable of doing it. And so I just posted on Twitter, like, is anybody willing to volunteer for sound design? And I even offered to teach like, the meager amount that I knew, to help people get started, in exchange for payment. And I mean, Jen came in and already knew what she was doing. I didn't need to teach her anything. She just wanted to be a part of something that she felt was, like Stu, like you were saying, a voice of or the what's the word? I can't remember what you said, Alistair. Force of good. There we go.
Force of good. There it is. Yeah.
COVID brain fog is still like it's still killing me. But yeah, she just wanted to be a force for good in the world. And so she joined Nightlight and kept it alive. So like I honestly owe her so much that I will never ever be able to repay her. So please, everyone that is in chat or whatever, like just show Jen some love because
Absolutely.
Jen has
Jen
done amazing work.
and Jen has done a lot of things in the genre fiction community over time. And I know, Jen, that we met in Ireland, in Dublin, and we had a good chat about what was working for you at that time in your life and what wasn't. And I'm really excited to see that, the direction you wanted to pivot with your skills has been so goddamn successful, to be honest. And I love watching you on Twitter because you're always talking about how you're having such a good time. And it really shows. The work is phenomenal and Afflicted, and I can't wait for everybody in the chat to get a chance
Dr.
to
Luke
hear
on the
this.
chat has just perfectly described sound design as like sound Lego. And that's
Yes.
exactly what it is. You build environments out of sound.
And it's truly the art when it comes to audio drama, right?
Yes.
Because it's much of what we do and you do with Nightlight is about prose and the translation of prose and how to honor and center the text in a way that sometimes sound design can take away from if it's done hack-handedly.
Mhm.
But with audio drama, it's that full layer cake. It is.
Yeah, you have to have it. It's as much of a story as like if you're watching a movie, the visuals are as much of the story as the dialogue. And with audio drama, audio is as much of the story as the words that I write. Like honestly, like I told Jen this, like when she first sent me the drafts for the different scenes as she was putting them together. I was like, "Oh my god, I hate my writing. Like this sounds so great. My writing isn't like up to par with your sound design." And she was like, "Shut up. That's not true." And it's so funny. Like once we got the scored version from Lillian, I was like really scared. Like once I heard the scored version, I thought that I was super gonna hate everything that I wrote. Now, you have to remember at this point too, like I'd read this script and listened to it dozens and dozens of times. Like
for
I'm
months
sick
or
of these
years
words,
exactly.
But when I heard the final scored version, like all of it together, I was like, wow, I'm actually a decent writer. Like this is kind of cool.
I am
you know?
so happy that you had that experience.
Yes, good.
Because that distance is so hard for folks who do what we do to get. That
Yeah.
moment where you hear your words as something other than what you've spent months or years pulling out of you.
Yeah, and you hear it in your head when you're writing it.
Yeah.
It sounds different than people might perform it.
Mhm.
And that was something that, I really struggled with Nightlight in the beginning and especially with Afflicted. We do table reads for Afflicted where we get all of the cast together and we go through the script together and we record live essentially, over Zoom.
Oh, love table
And
reads. Yep.
I mean, and it's so wonderful because the actors can play off of each other a little bit better. But a lot of times, they would say lines different than what I was hearing them in my head. And I had such a hard time not saying, oh, do it this way instead, and just trusting that they're actors. They know what they're doing, and unless it's like way off and not conveying what I need to be conveyed with that line, that I should just keep my mouth shut and trust the professionals to do what they do.
And you learn
And
viscerally the difference between the role of the writer and the role of the director and the role of
yes,
the performer when you wear those
yes.
multiple hats. It's like,
Yeah. It's so hard to divorce directing and writing, like, when you do both, it is so, so hard, and I'm getting better at it. It's definitely been one of those things where I've wanted to say something a lot of times, but knew that I shouldn't say something.
mm,
And honestly, like, I've got tattoos, and one of the things that I've learned over the years getting tattoos is that if I go to an artist and I tell them, "I want you to do it exactly this way, don't stray," I don't get I don't get their best work. If I
mm,
go in and I say, "This is what I'm going for. This is the feel that I'm
Yep.
going for." Like this tattoo here, it's kind of weird. It's a tarot card, the
yeah, yeah,
tower. Um, and I got it because the tower in tarot represents like basically complete destruction of whatever's going on in your life. But the flip side of that is that it's also an opportunity to rebuild.
right.
And one of my favorite quotes is, "It's always darkest before the dawn." And so what I had them do was put dusk and dawn on the tattoo instead of the tower, since
Oh,
that's the
that's
card that it's for. So
cool.
like when it's, this way, it's the figures are ascending and it's dawn, and then when it's this way, things are not so great and it's dusk. And that's all I did is I was like, I want this tarot card and I want dusk and dawn. You guys run with it. And they kind of like pieced together various tarot cards that would work well on a tattoo instead of trying to make something work that wouldn't work well with a needle, and I'm, like, so, so happy with it, and it's because I got out of their way and trusted my artist to do and fulfill
Hmm.
this vision that I had shared
But that
with
is
him.
anthema to the instinct of the writer, who is part.
Yes.
So many people are writers because they have ultimate control over
Yes.
every
Yeah,
single element
especially if you
of their
write books
story.
and things like that. It's
Right.
very different. Like, when I wrote my novella, like, nobody was telling me, "You can't do this," or, "The budget is gonna be a problem here," you don't have to worry about any of that. You just write what you want when you're writing a book or a short story, but when you're producing something, whether that's for TV, film, audio, a web series, whatever, you have to think about things like, what is the budget for this? How am I going to make this work within these restrictions
Hmm.
that I have? And so I'm learning so much about directing and producing, doing this audio drama. And I think I hope I hope my cast thinks that I'm a good director. They haven't complained yet, but I don't know if they would complain. But I have gotten a lot of really good feedback, especially about the writing
Mm.
from the cast. So I feel like overall the cast is pretty happy with me. I definitely, again, this is I don't want to say it's my first directing gig because I do direct to some extent with Nightlight. We
Mm.
have narrators, and
Uh-huh.
if I want them to reread a line in a
But it's
story, things like
different,
that. But
isn't
it's
it?
so different than, individual lines and individual characters and making sure that the stuff that's in my head about this character that they don't know yet because they haven't read, all of the episodes to know, oh, we're going to reveal that this character is really X. They don't know that yet.
Yep.
So I have to coach them in my directing and say, I need you to say it this way because what's really happening is this
Right.
thing that would spoil things. So I'm not going to be specific there. But
Exactly. Exactly.
but,
So,
yeah, but it's a wonderful experience. I love directing. I honestly wasn't sure if I would love it
mm,
or not, but I do. I do.
I think that people tend to fall into two categories where they either want to stick solely with one individual role and then they trust people and find people to collaborate with others, or you know there are people who just want to do it all and are able to switch the modes that the different roles
Mhm.
require.
Yeah.
We
I
are
am learning
coming.
that I don't want to do it all though.
I do. I just, filthy
Yes.
sleep robs me of hours of the day.
Yeah.
Exactly. We are coming up on a good spot for an ad break here, folks. So we're gonna, if you are not a supporter of the channel, you're gonna get an ad for a couple minutes here shortly. You don't have to do anything. By all means, just leave the window open, get yourself a snack, get a drink of water, stand up, stretch,
Get you a Shiner Bock
get yourself a
made in
beer,
Texas.
There it
see
is.
see if anybody in your household needs a snack or a medication or needs to go to bed or all that good stuff. And then we will be back to talk to Tonia some more because we noticed something in the closing credits of the first episode that we're gonna come back and talk about. All right, so I'm gonna click the magic button that makes the ad run. So some of you will join us in a couple minutes, and for the rest of us, we'll find something else to talk about. We're still getting used to this. So here we go. We'll be right back. So
I'm having so much fun. This
I'm
is so
glad.
great.
I'm glad
I
it's
love
having
you
fun.
guys so much.
We love you too, buddy.
I'm so
It's
glad
so
you were
good to see
available
you.
to do this.
It's so good to see you too. I saw Marguerite, we were talking a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
We can talk more about that offline. Obviously, like I went ahead and, did the thing. You were out in Italy. I was like, I'm not gonna bother you. Everything's good,
Oh, we're gonna talk about the thing. Don't worry.
Yes.
Just so you know, we are still on the channel. We're
Yes,
still
yeah,
talking live, so
yeah. Yeah, so I'm not saying anything
NDAs
specific.
and all that good stuff. Yes,
Yeah, exactly. But I do appreciate your help with that. And I
Of
wanted
course.
to let you know, I keep meaning to email you to like let you know like what happens, but
Well, I kind of figured out what happened when
I mean, you're
got
smart. I
announced. So
figured out that you did, but I wanted to be the one to tell you. It's just I was so busy with production and I was not the one to tell you. I hate not being the one to tell people things and having them figure out, some other way. Like I knew you weren't going to be upset or anything.
of course not.
I'm just the type of person that I'm terrible with communication, but I want to be good at communication, and that gap fucks me up every time.
It's okay. It's totally okay. So this is one of the first times we're running these ad breaks like with us live. We did them on Sunday, with very artificially when we on Sundays we just do very casual gaming streaming. And Stitch here is telling us the trick to ad breaks is to find something intriguing to come back from the ads mid sentence and out of context.
Oh,
so we'll have to do something and cursed by a llama or something. I don't know.
I now have a terrible confession. One of my many go-to gags is absolutely a rip of that. There's an episode of My Name is Earl where one of the things he repents for is a university lecture that he disrupted. And you get a montage of him delivering this lecture. And in the middle of this heroic, stirring music, they turn the audio up, and all he says is, "And that's how I found out Ginsu knives can cut through human bone. Let's move on."
I think you used that in Witching Hour, didn't you?
Once.
Oh yes. Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if everybody in the chat knows this, but I edit the Full Lid, obviously his award nominated newsletter, and I have a list now of things Alistair's not allowed to say anymore or that get automatically edited out. He has a couple of go-to phrases or analogy styles that I'm like, no, try again. Nope, you've used that 3 times this ad. You can't.
The no context thing we could talk about is I'm working on writing a book about monster biology, so we could talk about stomach capacity and blood. Like you can't drain a body.
What do you mean you can't
I
fully
have the
drain?
mightiest of needs.
Like you can't fully drain a body, or you've calculated how big your stomach has to be in order to drain all the blood?
Yes.
We are at 10 seconds before we come back, so this is a very good no context.
This is a very good no context guess. And then I saw Sarah Gailey talking about this, so
yeah, I think there has talked about it.
How much blood do you have to drain from a monster? How big does a monster's stomach capacity have to be to drain a human body?
A human body has about 5 liters total of blood. Our stomach capacities are about 2 to 2.5 liters, unless you are a binge eater, and then you might have up to 4. So basically what happens if you were to drain an entire body of its blood volume, you would have the worst stomach ache ever until you threw it all up, because your stomach could not physically stretch to hold it all unless you had practiced. Competitive eaters, obviously they do stuff to stretch their stomach out so that they can consume massive quantities of food. So competitive eaters would make very good vampires, but people like you and I would make terrible vampires because we would not be able to drain bodies, and then we'd have living victims everywhere, and that just seems like a recipe for disaster.
And there's just no Tupperware large enough for that.
No, there's not. They should really make, oversized thermoses. How cool would that be? Keep your blood warm.
Aren't those trendy right now? Aren't influencers carrying gallon-sized gym bottles these days?
They are. Yeah, you know what? They are. Yeah, we just need to make them insulated.
right?
We could corner the vampire market with this. I feel like there's a mighty need for a way to keep blood warm.
So apparently we succeeded because the first comment we see is, "Wow, this was certainly a place to come back from the ads." Thank you very
Yes.
much, Dr. Lee. That was the goal. Good. Yeah, a huge
Nailed it.
thermos would be very heavy. However, that's true.
A what would be very heavy?
A huge thermos would be very heavy.
Yes,
especially
yes,
in
it would be
vacuum
very
wine.
heavy.
But think of the stickers you could cover it with.
Yes,
Yeah.
honey, you would in fact cover it with a bazillion, trillion, zillion stickers. I will
like-
have you know that before we went on vacation, we had to get a new suitcase because one of our suitcases was broken. And I was just like, sticker real estate. So a suitcase with the travel is not advised sticker from White Vaults and with the Lonely Tarot card sticker went with us to Italy and was still on the case when we got back. I was very impressed.
I like it. I need a new suitcase because my wheels are falling apart and I just know I'm going to be wheeling around the airport at some point and it's going to break and then I'm going to have to carry that motherfucker. I'm going to be mad about it.
Yes.
Happened to me when I left York. Literally, when I got on the train to start my new life, the suitcase that my parents had bought for me the day before came out of the back of their car. The one half of one of the back wheels shattered, and 4,000 miles later, I was able to stop dragging it.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the worst.
Oh, yeah.
I need fan art of vampire Alasdair's blood thermos covered in stickers. Yes. That has to happen. So.
Got blood? Yes. It's not yours, though.
So you have a very interesting name as executive producer in the end credits for the first episode of Afflicted. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm an executive producer. I'm so slow right now. I'm sorry. The COVID brain fog is
It's okay. You take all the time you need.
Yes. There is a very interesting name as executive producer for the first episode. Just, someone that some people may have heard of called Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan?
Yeah, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, The Midnight Club, Oculus, he is my favorite director of all time. And
tell us all about this.
Oh, I got you.
Oh yeah, let's do this.
So, a few years ago, and I honestly don't remember how this happened because I'm pretty sure that it happened like in the middle of my divorce, and there's just a lot that's murky from then. Like I don't have a lot of memory from that time. And I just remember one day seeing an email that was like, Mike Flanagan is now a patron. And I was like, there's no way that it's the Mike Flanagan. Like, I'm going to go look and see, where they live, what the email address is. Like, is this just somebody? No, it was him. And I was like, holy shit. And ran and told my kid. And he was like, who's that? Because of course, he doesn't want to.
Who's that? Oculus is one of my favorite movies.
He's heard me talk about Mike Flanagan before, but of course he didn't have, he was a kid. Like he's not like, let me remember that name, So I told him and, explained who it was and he got really excited and, we jumped around and celebrated and I started crying because I was so happy because, my luck had been super terrible.
Yeah.
Up until that point. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe Mike Flanagan is a patron for Nightlight. And then, a few years down the road, I post this crowdfunding campaign for Afflicted, and he was one of our first donors, and he donated at the max level that I had at the time, which was 500. And then, I had a few other people donating at 500. So I said, I wonder what happens if I put 1,000. And that's when I gave people executive producer credits if they did 1,000. So he actually did a second donation.
Shit.
So even
well
more
done.
than just, and I was just I was so floored by it because, I look up to him so much. And for him to, I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything like that, but obviously he sees something in what I'm doing and wants to support it. Otherwise he wouldn't be throwing money at it. And to have his vote of confidence, even if I, fall short of his expectations, is still it's such a proud moment for me, for someone that does work of that caliber to think that I am worthy of financial support. That's just, it's flooring. And Jamie, who is Mike's sibling and wrote on Midnight Mass, which is, one of my favorite shows
Rahul
of all.
Kohli can be in everything. That's okay.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
But Jamie is so great. I met them at Stoker, and it's so funny because I
nice.
went to StokerCon, and the
For
very
those
first
of you who
panel
don't know,
there.
StokerCon is a big annual horror convention. It's
Yes.
mostly focused on prose, but it has made a conscious effort in the last several years to incorporate more multimedia like
Yeah.
audio drama and film.
And I think we'll see a lot more of that. John Lawson is now president, and I know that he cares very much about expanding into other areas. But yeah, so the first panel that I went to, I was like, I'm gonna get there early because I want to introduce myself to Jamie because I, loved Jamie's work in Midnight Mass. And, so I walked up to them and I just said, hi, I'm Tonia. I just wanted to say that, I really loved your work in Midnight Mass. And, I can't remember everything else I said because I was, fangirling, but trying not to fan.
Be cool, man. Be cool.
And then Jamie goes, I love your work too. And like my legs literally got weak and I had to like pretend that I was doing a happy dance.
You're like, I'm just leaning here to look cool and not because I'm gonna fall over.
Dancing, yeah. I'm just dancing. I'm not falling. But then he was like, do you want to go for some drinks after the panel? And I was like, wait, what? And of course, like, it was other people that they were inviting as well. And so, me and Jamie and a couple of other people went down to the hotel bar and had some drinks, and all of them were among the first supporters for Afflicted.
Aww.
And if you pay attention to the season or to the episodes, it's not in the first episode, but in the second episode, their names are both mentioned. It's just like secondary characters, kind of thing, just as a nod to, thank you for, being the first.
Of course.
And not just being one of the first supporters, but obviously spreading the word.
Yes.
And that's one of the, we all have different experiences in different communities and different audiences. And when they cross-pollinate, there's so much power to be had. And it's really empowering as creators to see that effect be leveraged on our behalf.
Yeah. And for Jamie, like, I've shared some of my writing with Jamie. I've texted with them, saying, hey, like, this is something that I have going on. Like, is this a good thing? Should I watch out for this kind of thing? Like, honestly, I consider them a friend at this point. And, they've said that they consider me a friend, which is like so wild to me. But like, it's wonderful though.
Celebrity is a weird thing, right? Because we just ascribe all these characteristics to these people when they become famous. Is like, oh, you do not walk among mere mortals, and there are a lot of people in recent history who do horrible, terrible things with fame, but they're still just people. And I always love hearing stories about creators that you really respect, not just because of the work that they create, but that the way they conduct themselves and the way they remain human beings when there's so much motivation and so much money and draw to not be a human being and to turn into garbage people publicly and drag others with you.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie won the Stoker for the episode of Midnight Mass, and they go up there to give the acceptance speech, and like the first thing that they say is, this isn't just my award, it also belongs to, and listed a couple of other people that wrote on that episode. So I mean, just Jamie is such a humble person who is amazing at what they do and have, every right, to not be as humble as they are, but they are. And I love them so, so much. And I'm so thankful for Jamie's support. I'm so thankful for Mike's support. There's been a few other people as well, like Justina Ireland, who also donated the very first story that we had for Nightlight. I just put out a call like, hey, I need stories and I'm paying, who wants to send me a story? Because I belong to like a Black writers group. And Justina was like, I think I got something for you and I can make it in the Dread Nation world. And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. So like coming out of the gate with, a best-selling author giving you a story in the universe of their best-selling novel is like, that was huge. I think that gave, a big bump to Nightlight. So I cannot express how thankful I am for the support that I've gotten from people in the community who are further along their career path than I am, because, they are definitely, reaching back and helping pull people up. And, it's definitely set an example for me to do the same. And I
Mhm.
really try, when I see someone who's just getting started, to help bring them along with me as much as I can.
Yeah. Speaking
That
of
is so
Justina
cool.
Ireland, Dread Nation is a fantastic. There's two of them now. Maybe there's
Yes,
a
Yeah,
there is.
yeah,
third.
There's two
there's
more just
a
out.
Deathless Divide, which I know is on my
Yeah.
bookshelf. Oh, wait, hold on. Everything's backwards. Right there.
Yeah.
No.
But that is a Civil War era set zombie book, is it
Yes.
not? So,
Yes.
are you
Yes, it
picking up
is.
on my segue here for you?
Yes.
Talk to me about Black Riders and zombies.
Oh man. Okay. So I grew up with stories not about the zombies that eat brains, but zombies that were resurrected essentially by necromancers. That's not what the Black community calls them, but necromancers. And it essentially enslaves them
Yeah.
to do their bidding. And it comes a lot from Haitian folklore, and obviously like a fear of enslavement
Mm-hmm.
even after you've died, that you still aren't free even dead. And my dad told me those stories growing up. He had a friend of a friend of a friend, or a cousin,
Mm-hmm.
somebody that knew somebody that knew somebody who died. And then they saw them, like 10 years later, wandering down the street or working in a field, and um, had to save them. And, one of the big things in the Black community, if you've ever heard a Black person say, "Who's got the body?" After someone dies, they're asking that because they want to know which funeral home is going to be taking care of the body, because it is a big fear in the Black
Mm-hmm.
community, not just because makeup is a concern. Like
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of folks in the funerary industry who just don't know how to do makeup on Black people, and so then it ends up looking unnatural. But then there's also this sort of, leftover superstition, and it's still very much alive for some people, that if you send your body to the wrong funeral home, it can end up in the wrong hands, and then you become enslaved in death.
There's
So,
also like this whole history of medical samples and studies being conducted on Black bodies without consent, without knowledge. I mean,
Mhm.
there's like a famous vaccine, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, that was developed almost exclusively from cells taken from one Black woman whose family
Yeah,
never
Henrietta
gave,
Lack.
yeah, who
Yeah.
never gave permission for this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's a lot of fuckery
A lot of
involved
fuckery.
with Black bodies. And, I think, especially for Afflicted, and, my novella Risen deals a lot with that sort of thing. And like I said, it was a big fear of my dad's. He wanted to make sure that, when he passed on, that we sent him to the funeral home that he wanted to go to, because it was something that he was legitimately afraid could happen to him. So I think that there's this, sort of dichotomy in the Black community about zombies. There's the, traditional, we're going to eat your brains, Walking Dead Romero kind of zombies, which is what Dread Nation kind of deals with, but it takes in that racial aspect of
Yes.
Black people essentially being used as cannon fodder to fight these
Mm-hmm.
zombies. And then you've got, this other aspect that is, I'm afraid that even in death, I won't be free, sort of thing. And I think both are worth exploring, and there's definitely an amalgamation of both of them
Hmm.
in Afflicted.
Mm-hmm. And then there's an anthology you're working on as well.
Yes, yes. So I'm working with Nicole Givens Kurtz on an anthology called Black and Roots, which is non-traditional stories of the undead from the African diaspora. So it's all non-Romero kind of zombies. It's very much African folklore kind of zombies. Not to say that there aren't some zombies that might eat brains and things like that, but it's definitely, the authors in this anthology are taking this trope of zombies that just eat your brains and turning it on its head
I'm
and saying,
looking at
"Get it
the
right."
so I've pulled up your crowdfunding page and I'm looking at author lists. I'm like,
That is a hell of a TOC.
Cherie Renee Thomas,
Holy shit.
Eden Royce, Zin Rocklin.
Rocklin.
I'm like, oh, these are all amazing, fantastic authors, and these are just the ones that
Yes.
I personally have experience with.
Yeah, we got so lucky.
There is some fantastic talent here.
Yeah, for sure. We're very, 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 especially Cherie Renee Thomas. We Nicole and I were talking about like, should we ask Cherie? Because like we know that she's busy with everything. Like I
Yeah.
think Cherie is probably busier than I am, which is saying a lot.
Oh dear God, that poor woman.
So we were like, should we even ask? We don't want her to feel like she's got to do it. And finally we were like, you know what? Like she'll say no if she can't do it.
Exactly.
Like she's the type of person that would say no. And so we asked and she agreed and we were like, wow, we didn't expect that. That's amazing. And then I got to interview at Multiverse a
Yeah.
couple of weeks or last week. Time doesn't really exist
Week
for me
before
anymore. It was a while
last, I
back. Yeah.
think.
Like
Yeah.
the 17th, 16th, 17th of this month. She was the guest of honor at Multiverse and they asked me to interview her. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing honor. I just hope that I can do her justice. And it turned out well. She was happy with the questions that I asked her, and
Great.
it was a great moment. It was such an honor to be able to be the one to interview her.
I don't think I've ever met her, but she's just such a
You have been
force.
awestruck from afar on several
Very
occasions.
much so. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just her presence is just like, I don't know, like just being in a room with her just makes you feel like at ease. And I don't know, man, like she's just got such great energy that I feel like if we could bottle it up, most of the problems in the world would go away because we would all just be chill.
Aw.
And
That's
so
fantastic. Oh,
yeah.
excuse me. So I want to pivot just a little bit to talk about kind of like businessy sorts of things because that's my
Right.
vibe, yo. So you made the decision to join a network recently.
I did,
and,
yes.
And you joined Rusty Quill.
I
with
did,
not
yes.
just Afflicted, which is releasing on Monday, but with Nightlight.
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I would love to. I've been exploring joining a network for almost a year now. I started at the beginning of the year thinking I need to start putting some feelers out, see what my options are out there. And part of the reason that I wanted to do it is with Nightlight, almost all of the money that I get from patrons goes to paying our narrators, our authors, our sound designers, and then of course expenses involved in running the podcast. So things like sound databases, website hosting, all the things that come with running a business. Almost all of that money goes to that. And I get like literally 5 cents an hour, I think is what I calculated for the work that I do. And, for a long time, I did not want to do ads. I did not want to have to do that. But, especially like once I put the crowd funder up for Afflicted, I was like, I should really be paying myself for my work on Nightlight. Just because this is, my dream and it's something that I want to do does not mean that I don't deserve to get paid for it. And so I decided to introduce ads. And, if people don't want to hear ads, that's solely cool. You can go buy a season pass. You can, join us on Patreon and you can get ad-free episodes that way. But the ads essentially fund, my salary, which isn't a whole lot. I think people overestimate how much a podcast can make off of ads. If you're not, the top podcast, you're not going to make, enough to even cover
and all the reporting
rent.
in media about of it is, you see these ridiculous pieces about if you're not spending $650,000 per episode of your podcast,
Right.
then you're ripping people off. I'm
like,
like,
yeah, and it's like,
I mean, don't we wish to have that?
Yes, right. Yeah, I wish I could pay. I want to give everybody involved in Nightlight and Afflicted, honestly. Like, I want to be able to pay everybody more. It's just, it's one of those things where this is a very much a new medium. People aren't necessarily familiar with how much it costs to produce something. They just kind of assume like, oh, well, they're just going to read a story to us, pay them like $15 and, they're good to go. But they don't realize how much work is involved in that, how much you have to think about what voices you want to use in different places so that people can distinguish one character from another, how you have to go through and edit out all of your bad takes. So even if it takes you, it's a 30-minute story from beginning to end with clean narration, you're going to spend 2 hours doing that. So $15 for 2 hours worth of work is not enough money,
Nope.
Exactly.
Sound designers, if we have a 30-minute episode, it takes them 10 to 20 hours depending on what kind of sound design has to be done to, source the music and the sound effects and put all of that in and make sure that everything sounds the way that it should. And then, of course, the writers deserve to be paid a professional wage for the work that they do. And, all of that adds up. If I paid everybody on Nightlight a professional wage, what they should be getting paid, then I would probably be spending $600 to $700 an episode at the absolute minimum.
Which means
And
you'd be reducing. I mean, the number of episodes you'd probably be producing would drop to one a month.
yes,
because
exactly.
that's the way it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I decided to introduce ads, one, so that I could pay myself.
Good.
And, also so that I could kind of separate, okay, here's my money that I get for the work that I'm doing, but then I can take all of the money that we get from the Nightlight Legion on Patreon, and I can use that to say, okay, I'm going to increase my pay for my authors, my narrators, and my sound designers. I think, at least from my perspective, that seems like the best way to do it, because they get paid the same no matter how many listeners the podcast gets. My job is to grow the podcast, and so my pay should be reflected on how many people are listening to the podcast, and that's what ads do. You get paid based on the number of people that listen. So, we've had a few people on Patreon, as soon as the ads got introduced, they dropped their pledges, which, I was disappointed. But, I also get it. I did not think to message ahead of time of, why I was doing what I was doing. So that was a mistake on my part. I should have, before the ads were even in place, should have said, here's what's happening. Here's what the breakdown is of how the finances are going to work.
Yep.
Here's why I'm doing it. And I think that would have kind of like staunched the bleeding a little bit. At this point, I think I've lost like $30 a month. So not like a huge amount, but it does make a difference, and we're trying to get to weekly episodes for Nightlight now. And, we're a long way from making that happen. We need to, we definitely need to get more folks on the Patreon.
Just what an audience expects and accepts from a podcast has changed an awful lot since you and us started in 2005. There was this fear, and looking back on it now, it was probably an intentionally inflamed fear by advertisers that if you advertise, you're going to lose your audience, which meant people wouldn't do it, which meant that the ad buys were high value and low target. And then the combination of Hollywood getting involved and COVID completely changed the landscape as far as advertising is concerned, because it was the only medium that was still continuing to increase during the lockdown period. And of course, we got flooded with, well, I wrote the screenplay and I can't get anybody to film it, but I could, make
I can do this podcast.
How hard could that be?
I have one actor who's been in a thing you've seen. This is their name is going to be all over this.
Yeah, exactly. And now, we're coming back down from that, and we're facing, a kind of global reduction in advertising spend. I think you're right, and I agree with you that the kind of the thing you talked about if there's one thing, it's not that an audience demands consistency anymore. It's that they don't like to be surprised. You've got to be really clear and repetitive and upfront. We are doing this because this. And then,
especially the repetition, because people will miss it. For sure.
That's common social media principle, right? If you're not talking about something 3 to 4 times a day, no one's going to notice. Your audience is going to get it.
I've never forgotten a couple of years ago, Cameron Hurley talking about how she just finished a successful crowdfunding campaign. She talked about it 3 or 4 times a day for a month. And literally, the campaign finished, and the first email she got was from a friend going, "Why didn't you tell me you were doing
this?" Right? And
people are gonna miss it.
As much as you post, gonna do what they're gonna do, and you can't control for that, and you can't chase that anymore. The one member of 10,000 in an audience who's gonna say, "Well, there was a mistake in your episode this week and I'm out."
Right. It's like, okay, fine. Like, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm not perfect. And if perfection is something that you require to chip in to help me make this, then, that's okay. I'm not for you. Good luck
Yeah.
finding someone who is perfect.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I mean, and it's the same thing with, the people that have dropped their subscriptions since I introduced the ad. Like, I know part of that is on me because I didn't explain ahead of time that this is what was happening. This is why I'm doing it, and I don't know if that would have changed their mind or not. I don't know what was going on in their head. But, I'm not mad at them for deleting their pledges or, anything like that. Like that's fine. That, it's their choice. It could be that they had something else going on and it just coincided with the whole ad thing, but at the end of the day, when I was going through my divorce, I posted, I didn't give a lot of details. I just said, hey, I'm going through a really messy divorce right now, and I don't have the mental capacity to create new episodes. I totally understand if you want to pause your subscriptions or delete your pledges. I'm not going to be offended. It's totally okay because I'm not giving you what I said that I was going to give you.
Yeah.
And I was super surprised that 2 people deleted their pledges during that time, and I didn't produce anything for, I think, 6, maybe 9 months because of that, and people stuck with me during that time. And honestly, like, because of everything that was happening, because this also happened to coincide with the pandemic and I lost my job, like, it was great that those people didn't drop off because it helped me pay my bills, and I hate that I didn't. It still bothers me to this day that I did not give them anything in exchange for the
But
pledges
we
that
didn't want
they,
anything in exchange for your pledges.
and that's what people keep saying, and I'm trying to make peace with that, that they had a choice, and if they did not want to support me at that time, I wouldn't have been upset. I would have been totally okay with it, but they chose to, and I think that that's the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is, yes, consistency is important, but transparency, I think, is far more important than
Transparency
consistency.
Oh, yes.
and communication
Yes.
can absolutely make up for consistency.
Yeah. Yeah, because when I got COVID, I said, "Hey, like, I can give you guys 4 episodes in October, or I can give you 2 in October and 2 in December, but I can't do 2 in September and 4 in October like we normally do because 'cause I've got COVID." You know?
Exactly.
And, there were a couple people that dropped their pledges, during September, which, again, is fine. Like, I wasn't giving what I promised. Like, that's totally okay. I'm not mad about it. But because I was transparent about it, I had a lot of people saying, like, take care of yourself. You are more important than this podcast.
Yes,
And
100%.
100%.
and I have such great supporters and fans, like people who actually genuinely care about me and don't want me to kill myself to entertain them, which is like huge because there's this song by Halsey called Gasoline. And one of the lyrics is, do you tear yourself apart to entertain like me? And I cannot tell you how many times I really vibe with that lyric because, I am tearing myself apart to entertain people, whether that's, overworking myself, which I need to be better about. Like, that's me, that's on me. But then there's also the part of writing where you're revealing the deepest parts of yourself. And
You're
that can be really
emotionally tearing yourself
scary.
apart.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable. So, there are different ways that you tear yourself apart to entertain people. And, whether my supporters recognize that or not, the vast majority have stuck with me for the long term. And I could not be more thankful for their support,
Well,
including you guys.
you also deserve it. I mean,
You do.
Oh, thank you.
I think we as creators have been trained by capitalism to expect a transactional relationship.
Yes.
I
Yes.
make a thing, you pay me for a thing.
Yes. That's how my brain's programmed.
And
I know it is.
I think things like Patreon have started to give us the vocabulary and the mechanisms to realize, no, we want to support you and your potential
Yeah.
more than we want to engage in a transaction for your creative output.
Yeah. And that's something that I'm starting to learn because I came into this seeing it as a transactional relationship, but my supporters, the vast majority of them don't see it as a
Not at all.
transactional
Yep.
relationship.
Absolutely. that's something which I think Marguerite makes a very good point. That's something which is very much coming in with this second tier evolution of crowdfunding. A
Or
couple of
just, just an evolution of how art is something that we engage with and foster and make space for in our lives and our attention.
I mean,
We
Yeah.
decide that we're going to support art regardless of, the specificity of its output. Like way back in the day, this is how old I am. Jonathan Colton talked about the thousand true fans, right? The idea that if you was an artist, had 1,000 people who would basically buy anything you produced whenever you produced it, that was the basis of a career. You could
Right.
survive
You've
on
made
that.
it at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I
I'm a
mean,
long way from there,
You
but
and
I'm
us
working
both,
on
man.
it.
I mean, most of us all. But then you start talking about things like, the reason why books are priced at $10 and the reason why people want to pay $10 for a season pass is because television, buying a DVD is $20. But the
Yeah.
reason you can buy a DVD for $20 is that the studio knows they're going to sell several million of them.
Right.
And that scale doesn't translate when you're an indie creator who's maybe going to sell 1,000.
No.
and
And
And this
again, it's
brings
all.
up
Yeah, go ahead.
a good point because I'm on the organizing committee for the Writers Guild Association Audio Alliance.
Oh yeah.
And I'm the co-chair for the Indie Fiction Committee. And one of the things that we are working on right now is classifying different types of indie fiction based on the budget, based on, who you have in place, who's funding you, and saying, here are fair rates to pay for this budget if, it's self-funded
Oh,
versus
you and
like
I are gonna
corporate funded.
talk.
Yes, please, please.
Yes,
I mean,
please, let's talk.
you can join as well if you want to join the organizing committee or the indie fiction committee or both,
I speak
um,
committee.
we would
I
absolutely
collect
love
committees.
to have you. But that's something that I think is missing right now from the podcast world is it's, still very much the Wild West. No one knows what to pay people. And,
And
I
it's
see people
so.
paying actors and sound designers the same. And actors, yes, their work is important, but they're going to spend a fraction of the time that a sound designer is
exactly.
And
going to
it's
spend. And
so
that pay to be equal is
stratified.
wrong.
And it's
Yeah.
so stratified because, I mean, it's like fiction. And it's why I think there are so many, I hate to say this, but there are so many synergies between genre fiction publishing and audio drama because you
Yes.
have that same aspect of stratification. There are bestsellers and there are Hollywood backed shows, and they have entirely different pressures, demands, pay scales, and
Mhm.
expectations from
Yes.
indie creators. And even in indie creators, you have successful established shows like Rusty Quill Network, like White Vault, like Old Gods,
Yeah.
who
Magnus
rise from.
Archives, which
Right?
is
Exactly.
yeah.
Very different scale from something like this is my first podcast and I've never done this before and I'm doing a one shot and I
Right.
have no idea what to do. So a project that tries to speak to those differences in a. And so much of the conversation about this gets into the word should. You
Yeah.
should do this. You have to do this. It's like if I did that, I could produce 12 minutes of audio and I'd write my season, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
there's something to be said to, I mean, one of the things I absolutely love about Mike Flanagan is he's a guy who knows how to take a limitation and leverage it into a creative strength and how to
Yes.
turn that into an asset. But this kind of project where you're talking about it from a very neutral value perspective, from a this is your reality, this is what we think is feasible in your reality, this is your starting point. Is,
Right.
I think you're right, something we, especially in the indie space where just the leverages of scale are so different, could really
Yes.
be useful. And
Yeah.
and it's one of those things that lowers barriers.
Yes.
We are good friends with someone who's putting together their very first show, and one of the things they struggled with was, where do I get realistic information about how to say what my price, what I'm offering, what's realistic, what
Mhm.
do I base my crowdfunding budget on?
Yeah.
And there aren't a lot of good, like, properly vetted comparators available.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of what we're trying to do, because SAG has their, standard rates for
Yeah.
podcast production and things like that, but that's out of reach for a lot of folks who are, indie productions. Like, yes, most people would love to pay people exactly what they should be getting because we know what it's like to be underpaid. Most of us know what it's like to be underpaid
But we can't
in our
produce
lives.
12 minutes of audio drama at that budget.
Right, yeah, yeah, if you've got $500, like, you're gonna do, like, 5 minutes, if that, there's just
Well, we spent our whole
so
budget
hard.
on the promo. Okay.
Right, we got a
Right?
theme song, kinda thing.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's so difficult, and even I mean, we raised almost 20 grand for Afflicted, and, in my opinion, Jen is still not getting paid enough for the work that she's doing. I would love to pay our actors more.
Mm.
I would love to pay Lillian more, so our goal next year is going to be a little bit higher. I'm
Mhm.
hoping that after people have heard the show, people will be more inclined to chip in a little bit more, because yes, people had heard of Jen and I before this fundraiser. It's not like we were complete strangers, but this is also like a brand new series. So people are going to be a little more reluctant to give money to something that they haven't
We could do a
necessarily heard
whole nother
before.
hour about funding season 1 versus
Yes,
funding
versus
season
2,
2
3.
plus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's such a different proposition.
Yeah.
We have been talking almost an hour and a half.
I love it.
I know, and we could just probably do this forever. And
Yes.
we missed you. We haven't gotten to catch up with you in forever.
I know,
You've
it
been
has
busy,
been
we've been
forever.
busy, and it's just
Yeah.
been so nice to have a chance to just chat and catch up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great. This
Okay.
has been so much fun. You guys have had amazing questions too, and
Aw, thank you.
Alasdair's almost made me cry a few times, which,
He's very
it's
good at that. with
terrible
me.
for my reputation as a horror writer.
Okay, so we are going to flood the chat with a whole series of links, and Tonia's going to give us a rundown again on where you can find all the good stuff. Okay?
All right.
Do it.
Okay, I can't see the chat from where I
It's
am.
okay. So we've got links for
Right.
Afflicted, Nightlight, and your Twitter account for sure.
Okay.
I think our stream mods will put the link to the Blackened Roots anthology crowdfunder in there again as well. I do not have a button, Jen, if you would kindly. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Hey. Thank you.
So Afflicted is out on Monday, Halloween.
Yes. Public release will be on Monday. I think we're gonna do 7 a.m. releases, 7 a.m. Central, just like we do for Nightlight. So it's still kind of early enough for the folks overseas
it's
to
1
catch it on
o'clock.
their commute home,
Okay,
or late lunch, something like that. But it's not so early in the day that people are listening to it before Halloween. We're going to have a virtual launch party for our supporters on Sunday, which I'm really, really excited about.
Which might
Scared
cry
about.
as well. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to play the first episode and then we'll have like a Q&A afterwards, which I'm excited about. Let's see what else. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, even though I don't do anything on TikTok right now, at Missdefying, MISSDEFYING. I know, I just need time.
I know. God,
That's
the
the
older
hard
we
part.
get and the busier we get, the more we realize that time is the most precious resource.
Yes. So precious. You can find Nightlight at Nightlight Pod on Twitter or Instagram. You can find Afflicted at Afflicted Audio on Twitter. We're on Instagram, but we don't really post there because Jen and I are both like, Instagram.
I have a tool for you. We'll talk about it at the break, okay?
I need, and the thing is, like, they changed their algorithm, I guess, a year or two ago. And, I've noticed, like, just the views for a lot of my posts went down. So it's just kind of like, I'm not getting a lot out of posting on Instagram. And, part of it is that I'm not putting a lot into it anymore.
But how many things can you put a lot into anymore all at once?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And, I'm really trying to corral some of that in so that I'm focusing on the places that I am most effective, which right now is Twitter. That's where I have, my biggest audience,
Well,
and
at
I
least
tell the
until
Twitter
Friday,
stories.
right?
Yeah. We'll see. I'm not, I don't know what's going to happen after Musk takes over, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Let's see what else. You can go to afflictedaudio.com
Nicely done.
to see a list of our cast and crew. Our trailer is also posted there, and links to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or just directly through RSS. So people can go ahead and get that added to their queue. So the moment the episode drops on Monday, it will be in their podcast player and they can get that.
And Jen, make sure you drop your Twitter link in the chat as well.
Yes, please, Jen.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Jen is Loopdiloo. LOOPDILOU. Let's see, what else? I think that's it. I mean, other than that, like other news that I have is I got a literary agent because I told a viral Twitter story back in June and had a bunch of people reach out to me. Thank you. Had a few people reach out to me for that. So I have a literary agent and we're working on a monster biology book proposal. Well, we will be after I'm not dying from Afflicted anymore.
Now we know that you need at least 2 people to consume an entire person's worth of blood. You have to share. Sharing is very important for vampires.
Yes. You have to share. You have to have a vampire buddy.
Humans are a sharing platter.
Yeah.
Humans are a cheese board. Okay.
And I have a TV and film agent, as well as a podcast agent as well, that I got from...
Someone in the chat has said 1 body, 2 straws, and now I'm imagining the meat cute.
Ooh, yeah, I mean, you could have like, a straw in each carotid and just, go for it. It's like, like super sweet, like the way they used to share milkshakes.
Yes, exactly. It's cute over a body.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Vampire romance authors. There's something for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. bit.ly/blackandroots. We could really, really use your help. I think we're at a little under 3,000 now. I haven't looked today, so we're still quite a ways from our goal of 10,000. Every dollar absolutely counts there. We would absolutely love to hit our goal.
And there are some absolutely amazing authors involved with this for sure.
Yeah.
So I haven't closed that tab. I'm gonna leave that one.
Yeah, and some of those stories are going to be on Nightlight as well. So it's not just in the book itself, though. The funds that we get from that fundraiser are going to go to help support producing some of those stories on Nightlight for people to listen to as well.
Amazing.
That's a great idea. Okay, thank you so much for joining us.
This has been wonderful.
Really
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I love you guys.
We love you too. It's so nice to see you. All right, everybody, we're going to take a little break and we're going to feed the ad machine again. So this is a great... And we love you too, Jen. Yes. And we love Lillian. I hope she's listening. So we're going to take a little ad break and say goodnight to Tonya, and then we are going to come back with some shenanigans so that you don't go to bed thinking about meat cutes over vampire victims.
Meat spelled M-E-A-T.
I know you spell it M-E-A-T. Alrighty. Say goodnight.
It's like that iZombie show where there's that store that's called Meat Cute.
You're Rahul Kohli. It's all come full circle. This is perfect. This is perfect. Yes. All right, everybody. We'll be right back.